Yeah, once again, you're most welcome back to our class of biology senior 4, looking at the topic of reproduction. And now, from where we left, we had a comparison of what seeds and fruits are, compared them. Now is the time to have a look at this puzzle and its importance into details. Um, Without much waste of time, let us kick start. So when we talk about seed, when we talk about this puzzle, what are we meaning? What is our interest? Yes, our interests are on what is it? Is it important? If we can understand, if we can answer those questions, well and good. Let's jump directly inside to the content. Remember, in these lessons, we'll just provide you with the knowledge. And if you want to get the skills, because we're in the competency-based curriculum where our interest mass is on the skill acquisition, but of course you can't acquire the skills without the knowledge. You can't do what you don't know. So here we are giving you the knowledge. Then the best area, the best place where you can acquire the skills that are needed is when we look at, when you're in the class, when you're interacting with your teacher, here, not really have much of that. So let's continue. One, what is dispersal? Now, dispersal is just the scattering or the spreading or the displacement of fruits and seeds from their parent plant, which means they are taken away from the parent plant. There are some plants in which it is only and only the seeds that are dispersed. However, it's not only that. In others, both the seeds and the fruits get dispersed. For example, if we pick the mango, when you're taking the fruit, you're also taking the seed with it. Okay? But those where you only take the seed, the best examples of this will not now be among the common fruits that we eat, but we'll have a look at them. So let's go deeper. Is it important that the seeds and the fruits leave their parent plant? Of course, it is important. And these are why we are saying that it is important. One is that overcrowding will be avoided. Overcrowding of the plants of the same species will be avoided. I mean, you know, overcrowding comes or brings in some challenges to these plants. You know, plants of the same species have either same or similar needs. Similar need for the amount of water, similar need for the for nutrients. The same actually. Same needs for water, nutrients, sunlight, and so if all of them, all the young ones, if the seeds fall just next to the mother plant or the parent plant and germinates and grows there with the same need, you will realize the competition will be high, and the competition is brought about by overcrowding. So to avoid that, it is important that the seeds and fruits get dispersed. Two, it reduces the competition that I've already talked about, meaning that as we talk about overcrowding, if we avoid overcrowding, we are reducing competition between these plants of the same species. Not only this, but also there will be minimization of the spread of epidemic diseases, especially in seedlings, if they are crowded. I mean, uh, plants of the same species are have even similar disease that attacks them. So if they are genetically, their genetic constitution is very similar, then but when the disease strikes, it will spread very rapidly amongst all of them, and that can wipe out the species in that particular location. And to avoid that, we are saying it is very important for the seeds and fruits to be dispersed. We can also we need to realize that colonization of new areas occurs because of dispersal of seeds and fruits. So these plants will be able to survive in another region, in another location, meaning that even if some disaster occurs and then destroys the plant these plants of the same species in one location, because colonization had taken place in another area, then the same species in that area are not going to get destroyed. And this is a very important in a ecological and survival, sense. Very important that the genes of the plants remain. Next is it enhances the chances of survival and continuity. This can also be explained in a similar way, like colonizing new area enhances survival and the continuity of the plant species. I think I did explain that very well. With all this said, we can conclude that really this puzzle of seeds and fruits is very vital, and it must, I mean, it needs to occur. We can jump to looking at agents of dispersal. This important thing has its agents. One is that water is an agent of dispersal, and water disperses normally uh, seeds and fruits that are light. I mean, they are a little bit hollow. I mean, like they have some open space inside so that they are lighter than water. And so when running water comes in, it carries them. That's just one example. We'll throw more light later on them. And two, wind is another. For wind, it normally, okay, not normally, wind disperses those seeds and fruits which are light. They can be carried by wind. Three is animals. Animals are of various categories. You and me are that example. Uh, in the local setting of Uganda, if you come from, okay, people from northern Uganda, let's say Jumani district, when they go to Kampala and whenever they're coming, but most of them buys pineapples from around Luero, Kafo area. They come along with this. What makes them to come? I mean, to buy those fruits because they they are sweet. I mean, the scent is nice, it's sweet, so people want to eat them, and they bring them together with the suckers. And once they reach here, they're those who end up planting the suckers, or they just throw the suckers away. And when the suckers land in a soil, or I mean environment which have good conditions for sprouting of the roots and hence growing, then you are going to realize that they will grow. I've just given an example, but there are very many others which are either done, which are done even without the organism knowing. For example, um, if you look at this plant called blackjack, the blackjack has spikes that are sub-curved, and so if an organism is moving around, they get attached to the body of this organism, and the organism end up carrying this the seed and sometimes the fruit of the blackjack from one location to another, and where they land, they germinate and they grow into new plants. Plus very many others. Another one which behaves like another plant whose fruit and seed behaves like a blackjack is the desmodium. The desmodium also, correct? It doesn't. It has some kind of hairy hook-like structures on it that makes it to also attach itself onto the body of an animal, like the hair of animal or the fur of an animal, or for human beings on the clothes, and that is it. We also have some of the seeds and fruits that uh, disperses by themselves. They have mechanism on themselves that makes the seeds and the fruits to leave the location of the mother plant and they go somewhere else. We'll dive deeper into those ones. Otherwise, to ensure that all these seeds and fruits get dispersed, they have some specialized structures on them, and it is these specialized structures that determines the mode in which these fruits and seeds get dispersed. Like there are some of those specialized structures that makes the plant to be easily dispersed by water. I've already given an example. I've given some small clue on it. The one by wind, I've given some example. And then also the ones of animals, yes. For the explosive mechanism or the self-dispersal mechanism, agent, I didn't talk much, but I can give example of those plants that that gets dispersed by these explosive means. For example, if we pick the beans, if you leave your beans to stay very long in the garden, I mean the fruits, they will split into two when the sun is very hot, and when there is also, let's say, normally wind, and when it splits, the seeds gets exposed, and where they land, if water and the other conditions necessary for germination are availed, they germinate and they grow into new plants. We can go and now have a look at the characteristics of those seeds and fruits that are dispersed by each of these different agents: water, wind, animals, or self or explosive mechanism. So one is wind. So for wind, those seeds and fruits that are dispersed by wind, as I said, they are normally small in size, so that their weight is small, and that smallness in size in weight is called is being light, and they are also dry. And because of this, they can easily be carried away by wind. And once they are carried in the wind by the wind in the air, they get dispersed. I mean, they will leave the location of the mother plant too. Some fruits like the elm and the ticoma have wings. They're not exactly wings, but wing-like structure that looks like wings. And so that reduces their density, making them to be able to float in air. Because the wing structure provides a very large surface area that will be that will make them to be carried in the air, making them relatively lighter. And so it is important because it delays the fall of a hair and formation and also increases the chance of being blown away by wind. Next is that fruits like the tree ducks have parachute-like structures that are haired. They are called the papas. And is it important? Yes. The papas are very light, feathery, and so they make um, these tree ducks fruits to be carried into the air or blown into the air by wind, and they float in the air or they fly in the air for some time, and that means the distance they cover increases, so they get dispersed very far from the mother plant, thereby reducing overcrowding, the challenge of spread of disease, and then also the challenge of I mean the challenge in the if there is nothing like a seed and the fruits getting dispersed, like I've already given two. The third one that I wanted to talk about is a competition for water, light, even air, even nutrients in the soil. All those will be reduced. Next is that some seeds like the silk cotton have tree-like structures that are called the floss. And this increases surface area, and also that makes the seeds less dense. And so if wind blows them into the air, they'll be able to float in the air for some time, hence being carried away very far. Next is to look at the characteristics of fruits and seeds that are dispersed by water. A little bit, I think it's okay. Maybe if some of the parts at the bottom here you were able to see, and truly you were able to see, I can take away the video for you to see, but it's not much. What is being hidden is not much. Only the word in air, and then the word here is structures called floss. I talked about the floss. This is the spelling of floss. Um, from this other side, let me see whether it's something that you should have also seen, but you were able to see. So I think we're okay. We're okay from the other sides. So the next is to look at those fruits and seeds that are dispersed by water. Their characteristics include one, they are usually light, and inside them there is some air that reduces that weight. I mean, the one which makes them to be lighter and so relatively dense, relatively less dense than the water, making them to be able to float over water surface as running water carries them along. Example of these fruits and seeds that are dispersed by water is the coconut. Two is the third one is to look at fruits and seeds that are dispersed by animals. I gave only one example, but you can take your time and go and look at others. So under those fruits and seeds that are dispersed by animals, they have the following characteristics. They are normally brightly colored. I mean, they are brightly colored, and that bright color actually attracts animals. And examples of these fruits include tomatoes. Once tomatoes are ripened, they are um, brightly colored. They attract animals. Humans will eat them, and the others. Oranges, mangoes, among others. And also, these fruits and seeds that are normally large. I think for this case, we can talk about the fruits, not the seeds, because the seeds are hidden inside. They are large, and being large means there is large store of nutrients that the animals that disperses them can benefit from. Two is that if they are ripened, they have some scent which attracts these animals. And the typical example of these fruits, as I'd already given as an example earlier on, is the jackfruit. The- sorry, sorry for excuse me. Um, I'm reflex action. Can't control it. Okay, we can proceed. So the next characteristic is that some of these fruits and seeds usually have edible parts. If you look at the examples I have given, tomatoes, oranges, mangoes, they're really edible, they're juicy, succulent, and so the animals get attracted. They want to go and eat food. They want to go and eat what? Food. And so at the end of the day, they'll eat the fruits. If we pick, for example, the mango and the avocado, they'll eat the fruits, but they don't eat the seeds. Even when we go to the oranges, humans don't eat the seeds of oranges, and that's otherwise we need to find out more. But tomatoes, of course, they eat everything. But if okay, that can come later. not in this area. Otherwise, the most important point that I want to make here is these fruits and seeds that are dispersed by animals have edible parts that are juicy that the animals go to eat. And once they eat the fruits, they pick and they disperse them, take them wherever they are going, but also eat them. And if they, as they eat them where they cannot eat the hard seed, they throw them away. And where they land, when the conditions necessary for germinations are available, they will germinate, and that is dispersal. That is dispersal. Next is that some like guavas, tomatoes, the paper, pawpaw. You know, the whole fruit is eaten, but the seeds are not digestible. I mean, they are resistant to digestion in the rumen, sorry, in the digestive system of the animal that is their seeds, and so they are passed out undigested, and they where they get passed, if it's on land, I mean in soil, then they germinate and they grow into new ones, and that is this puzzle last that some of these, as I given even example before, fruits like the Biden pelosa or the blackjack and the desmodium have hooks and some sticky, not sticks, sorry, some sticky hair, and these makes them to stick onto the body of animals that are passing. I gave us in human beings, I gave example of these sticking to the clothes of humans, sticking onto the hair or the fur of animals like the cattle, goats, sheep, etc. And at the end of the day, the seeds and the fruits gets carried very far from the mother plant. The next thing that we're going to have a look at will be self-dispersal. So for those seeds and fruit that are dispersed by what we call the self-dispersal of or explosive mechanism, these explosive mechanism occurs with those types of fruits which we call the dry dehiscent fruits, and for them their pericarp splits open, the three layers splits open, and that point where they split open is what we call the sutures. And so once the splitting occurs, the seeds gets released, and so and there is some serious tension. Tension continues to build during the process of these fruits drying, and so once they split, the high tensional force exposes the seeds. I mean, causes the seeds to be thrown very far from the mother plant. And examples of those fruits include the legumes, where we talk about the beans, the capsules, and the follicles. That is that. The next time we meet, we will have a look at the structures and the types of fruits. See you next time. Goodbye.